We'll start working our way through this chapter 2 test review. So the first one here says state the domain and range. Okay, so domain. The domain is the set of x values. So we're looking for the set of x values. We have -5, 4, -3, and 5, and we normally put these in numeric order. So -5 is the lowest, and then -3, and then 4 and 5. So there's the domain of this relation. And then we'll do the range in blue. So range are the y values. And so we have, okay, -4, -2, 2, and 2. We only have to list the 2 once. Is the relation a function? Well, in order for it to be a function, each x value can be paired with only one y value. -5 only goes with 2, 4 only goes with -2, -3, the only thing it goes with is -4, and 5 only goes with 2. It's okay that they go to the same y value. You just can't have the same x value there. So this is yes. It is a function. Represent the relation with a mapping. Okay, a mapping, we put our domain here and the range here. So I'm just going to list my domain. Try to keep our color scheme here. We got -5, -3, 4, and 5. And then for the range, we have -4, -2, and 2. And we look back at our points. -5 gets paired with 2. -3 gets paired with -4. 4 gets paired with -2. And 5 goes with +2. And then graphing the relation, it's probably easiest just to come back to our points. The first value, so -5, 2, -5, 2. Tells you your x coordinate and then the y coordinate. 4, -2, so we come out to 4, -2, -3, -4, and then the last one is 5, 2. And if you weren't sure about number 2, you can now use the vertical line test. And you can draw in a vertical line. And you can see, you can kind of slide that across there and think, does that vertical line ever go through more than one point? It does not ever go through more than one point, so it is a function. That's just a review for number 2. So there's just things about some relations, domain, range, and whether it's a function or not. The next 5 questions, I already wrote them in here because those are just equations. Make sure you know your different forms. Slope intercept, y equals mx plus b, both equations for slope. So you have the word version, and this is what we use if we're graphing. It's more helpful to use this idea if we're dealing with a graph. This is if you have 2 points. Make sure you get a good grasp of these, all these equations. Here's point slope form. This is usually more helpful if you're writing equations of lines. Even if it says write it in slope intercept form, you can start with this point slope form. And then here's the distance formula. Remember, this came from the Pythagorean theorem, so this is the length of a leg. We knew we find lengths by subtracting values, so leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared, but we had to take the square root of both sides. And then the midpoint formula is just the average. Think averages. Average of the x's, add them together, divide by 2. Average of the y's, add them together, divide by 2. And let's look at graphing lines. So this is in the form that we like, slope intercept form. This tells us right here where it crosses the y-axis. It's called the y-intercept. So we know that our graph crosses the y-axis at +2. And then here is our slope. Oftentimes we want to think our slope as a fraction, so we can work with that rise over run that we were mentioning. So -3/1, which means that our rise is -3. So from our point, we go down 3, and then our run is 1. We can do that a couple different times. Down 3, right 1. Or we could put the negative in the denominator and think up 3 and left 1. And then we can graph a line. So looks like that would be a good line. The next one is not in slope-intercept form, so we're going to put it in slope-intercept form. And we do that by solving for y. So we could rewrite it over here. 3x minus 5y equals 5. We would subtract 3x from both sides. And we get -5y equals -3x plus 5. And we divide everything by -5. So that's like dividing each term by -5. And we get y equals, the negative divided by negative is positive, so we can put 3/5 x. And then 5 divided by -5 is -1. So now we have it in slope-intercept form. Our y-intercept here is -1, so we start at -1 on the y-axis. And we have a slope of 3/5, so we can go rise 3, 1, 2, 3, and run 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or we could think of this as -3 over -5, because they're equal to each other, so you could go down 3 and left 5. And then we can graph that line. And there's the graph of those two lines.